Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal.
Case file number 372, written by Anonymous. A near-death experience on the road and a family of creepy dolls without faces. I'll try to keep this quick, but that's unlikely. This happened in 2016. A combination of a near-death story with a glitch I can't explain. Me and two friends, 16 and 18 male, were hanging out on a Friday night with not much to do. No drinking or drugs involved. We decided to take my friend's recent hand-me-down car for a cruise on some popular driving roads in the mountains. The car was manual, and the owner and my other friend had very little experience driving standard, so I was the driver. The trip into the mountains was uneventful, and we pulled over and switched drivers a few times so they could get the hang of manual. On the third switch, my friend with zero manual experience hops in and gets it moving. He stalls it a few times and the clutch starts getting hot. He can't get it moving again, so we go to switch again. As we are getting out of the car, all three of us notice a life-size family of dolls standing at the edge of the road about 40 feet away at the end of a driveway. A father, mother, and two kids, 3.5 to 5.5 feet tall. Wearing clothes from what looked like the 1800s. They were all holding hands and angled in our direction, but they had no faces, just blank, round, white heads, nothing painted on, and no facial features. This sufficiently freaked us out, so we hopped in the car and started racing out of there. This is where the glitch part comes in. As we are speeding out, I go around a right turn that has a 30-mile-per-hour limit. As I'm halfway through the turn, I realize we're going 70 miles per hour, and the car starts sliding. I countersteer. The car swings one way, then back the other way, then once more in the other direction. The car comes to a stop perpendicular to the road, a foot from the edge of the cliff, and facing a large, 30 feet tall times 80 feet long, white retaining wall. We drive slowly in silence the rest of the way home and go to sleep. 2 days later, I worked up the courage to go check the area out during daytime. The dolls weren't there, and the location of the driveway seems to have changed almost a half mile. I knew it was the same one based on the VW Vanagon they had parked at the top. Weird, but maybe I was too freaked out to notice where we were that night, despite clear landmarks. I'd driven the road countless times, so it was an uneasy feeling. Next, I went looking for where the car slid out. I managed to find the turn and identified the same 30-mile-per-hour sign. I saw the tire tracks from our car, but when I followed them to where they stopped, there was absolutely no retaining wall there. Very, very confused now. I drove up the road another 3/4 of a mile, and there's the exact same retaining wall I remember seeing directly in front of us that night, with no tire marks in front of it. I have no idea how these locations changed. It took me a long time to think of it as a glitch in the Matrix. If I didn't have another two people with me, I'd think I was completely insane, but they remember seeing the same things in the same places as I did. I feel like our brains could have omitted some things, as is common with certain trauma, but for all three of us to experience the same thing is still odd. That's all. I've told this story over the years. Some people think I'm crazy, some don't. I still have no idea what happened that night, but I'm still alive, as far as I know, so it's all good in my book. Case notes. So this was only briefly touched on, but those dolls being there is very creepy. It almost reminds me of the weeping statues in Doctor Who. Of course, in this case, they weren't following you if you shut your eyes, but damn, that is just ominous, isn't it? And yet you survived, so maybe it wasn't ominous. Maybe somehow this was a signal of a guardian angel, changing the very landscape that night for you and your friends, so you wouldn't crash into anything. I don't know what to make of those dolls. Case file number 373, written by Goofball-John-McGee, Seiko brand watches and a glitch. Short story happened a year ago. My girlfriend and I were in the local mall for a quick errand when we passed by this famous watch boutique there. They had a poster of the newest Seiko dive watch. This piqued my interest because not many stores stock Seiko here. So naturally I asked my girlfriend if we could go in for 5 minutes. We did. I tried on a couple of watches, I didn't like the collection so much, and the sales rep told me to check next week because they're adding newer ranges as and when they get cleared by customs. She cited the virus that shall not be named and all that. I agreed and we walked out of the store. The store was empty, and that's not very uncommon because there were several social distancing guidelines for that mall. As well, the boutique itself has mid to high-end brands. Now here's the kicker. We were near the mall 8 to 10 days later, and we decided to check if they had other models, but they vehemently denied that they ever carried Seiko. I felt like I was crazy. I said there was a poster outside and everything. The manager said there may be a chance it was another branch, but to his knowledge, the boutique itself doesn't stock Seiko, no matter the branch. Dumbfounded, I emailed their head office, and even they told me the same thing. My girlfriend and I spoke about it, and we just couldn't explain it. What the hell did I try on? And where? Case file number 374, written by the Jorge, a lock of hair out of place. I, 30 female, was doing my hair the other day. I pulled it into a ponytail and realized a lock of hair behind my ear had fallen out of the ponytail. It was resting kind of awkwardly on my shoulder, as though it had fallen perfectly vertically and piled on my shoulder. So I let my hair down and put it into a new ponytail, leaving the old ponytail holder on my wrist. I was looking in the mirror in my bedroom the whole time. It's also worth noting that I'm prior military and still wear my hair in military regulation when I'm going to work, to keep it out of my face, so it was tight and clean. I double-checked that it was in place and walked not even 5 steps into the bathroom to get hairspray. I got to the bathroom and caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The same exact lock of hair was down behind my ear, resting on my shoulder in the same way. I just stared at myself in the mirror, wondering if I had actually fixed it or if I had gotten distracted, but the old ponytail holder was still on my wrist. It was just so strange. It's been at least 3 days, and I keep thinking about what it looked like. It was like someone had messed up the animation in a game. Bonus file, written by Stanathaan. This entity was strong. He must be lifting. Just to preface the story, I've never had any experiences like this before or since. I would like to find some rational explanation for it all, but to this point I have not been able to. Even thinking about this house brings back the same helpless fear I experienced back then. I was about 16 years old when my family purchased a fixer-upper home in a relatively nice neighborhood. By no means was it a dump, but it certainly needed work. Upon moving in, we were informed the house had in the past served as a home healthcare facility for the elderly. There were no strange feelings about it. Our family was quite excited to have a new home to start fresh. My father and I began by ripping up all the flooring and laying new tile throughout, knocking out some walls, redoing the kitchen counters, etc. Next was the backyard. It was basically just a dirt lot with a little porch. On the porch was a laundry room, a tiny little shed near the back door. The first strange thing we noticed was that there were multiple locks on it. The odd part was that the locks were on the inside of the laundry room. The door was rather heavy. I don't believe it was wood, but it was a dense material. On the inside of that door was a tiny child-sized handprint. Not in paint or dust, but it was impressed into the door. This baffled us for the longest time. My brother and I began tearing up the yard, getting ready to seed it, and my brother hit something hard that made a ding sound. We kept dinging around until we decided to pause. We didn't want a massive hole in the yard. My father's curiosity got the best of him, and he decided we would dig until we unearthed whatever it was. We dug a massive hole and discovered an entire twin bed frame, black and rusty. In addition, we found several small plastic children toys, many of which appeared to be partially melted. This officially gave us all the creeps. Over the next few months, strange things started to happen. Our 2 dogs would stand and stare down the hallway, growling and barking with their hair on end. Every time this would happen, we would all pause and watch. This became more frequent until they began going into my room at the end of the hall and repeating this, staring into my closet. This was obviously unnerving, but ultimately decided there was nothing to worry about. They were just being good boys. Sometime later, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and feeling an extremely dark, oppressive feeling, like I was being watched. I sat up and looked around the room, and there was nothing, but the fear and the energy was paralyzing. I am roughly 17 at this time, and I began sleeping with my head under my covers. Every now and then, I would wake up in the middle of the night, and that feeling of being watched persisted. That fear was so heavy, I wouldn't even look above my comforter, fearing I would see something large and ominous staring back. I told my father about this, and although he believed me, there was nothing to be done about it. A few months later, that all came to a head when I awoke to someone shouting my name in the deepest, raspiest voice. I jumped out of my bed and flew to my door at light speed. I threw it open to find my entire family staring back from their respective bedroom doors. "Who the hell screamed my name?" I said. Everyone just stared at each other, visibly shaken, and stated they all heard their names screamed as well. Things intensified from there. Things moving or being knocked off of shelves. In the movies, it's always something small, only noticed by someone alone, but in our case, it was always on full display for whoever was there. My brother's football team was over one day, in the living room eating and playing Xbox while my dad cooked, when several items on the top of our entertainment center went flying several feet. This was not the case of the items rolling off of an uneven surface. These were signed baseballs and footballs flying off and hitting the wall. These football players took off running through the front door. By this point, my family had grown used to the strange happenings, and after standing there taking it all in, we picked up the items and went about our day. The next significant event was when my dad's friends were over, sitting on the couch. These were not tiny people, rather heavy set. All three on the couch, when in mid-conversation, the couch moved several inches to the left, screeching across the floor quickly. This startled me, and I jumped. I have never seen anyone move as fast as those three people on the couch. You would have thought we had ejector seats on that couch. A short time later, I was coming home from work in the early evening. I pulled into the carport and saw the door was wide open. I knew immediately something was off. I apprehensively peeked in and saw the back door was also open. I walked in and immediately felt a feeling of dread as I looked around and saw every door, cabinet, and drawer in the kitchen wide open. Thinking of myself as a tough guy, I grabbed a knife and decided to search the home while yelling out for my family or whatever potential intruder may be there. When I got to that dark hallway and stared down it, I knew something wasn't right. The fear overshadowed whatever courage I thought I had, and I ran out and called my father. They were out walking the dogs. They ran home and saw everything was open. We searched the home, but no one was there. Things got very dark in our home. Everyone was always angry and fighting. Families have issues, but this was constant, almost inexplicably so when looking back on it. I started having these moments where I was like daydreaming, but deeper and more vivid. I couldn't hear people around me. It was like being somewhere else. Finally, one day, a girlfriend of mine was over. I was sitting there on the edge of my bed, staring into my closet where I had my entertainment center, when I dozed off into one of those daydreams. I saw my girlfriend take my phone and walk it into my dining room where my family was sitting and sat it behind my dad's records to prank me. When I snapped to, I stood up casually, walked to the dining room, moved the records, and grabbed my phone. My girlfriend and the entire family stood there with their jaws on the floor. "How did you know where that was?" I started saying, "Well, I saw her put it there." As I said this, I started to realize how bizarre that sounded, and started to feel freaked out now, seeing them stare at me like a crazy person. I just walked out of the door, started my car, and went on a date. That came up several times, and to this day, I don't like talking about it. It was too strange. There were many more events. These were just the highlights. I was glad when they sold that house. Whatever the explanation for all of these things, they were creepy as hell.